Hey everybody, welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I'm Miss Thomas, and I am really excited about March Mystery Madness. I love mysteries, it's my favorite genre, and I thought since I got a hold of Frida McFadden's book, The Teacher, I would review that along with a bunch of other books for Mystery Madness. But I finished The Teacher last night and I was so angry. So in this video, I'm going to tell you all the reasons why I am mad and offended by The Teacher, written by Frida McFadden. So welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. If you like hearing about good books, you're in the right place. This is only the second review I've done on my whole BookTube adventure that I do not have nice things to say about a book. I did one other book rant because I was just that mad that I wanted to get on here and say all the things I took offense with, and that was the last Housewife book rant. I don't like to criticize books. I love books. I love authors. I think that the effort and the time that is put into writing a book should be respected. And I actually really gave a great review and loved The Coworker by Frida McFadden. So it is with a heavy heart that I tell you, I read The Teacher. I listened actually to the audiobook last night and I was so angry. I mean, I would have DNF'd it, except it's Mystery Month and I did like Frida McFadden's other book. And I kept thinking, like, if I just ride the wave, it'll get better. And it did not get better. It was an awful book and definitely a book that I would not recommend. So the premise of the book is that there's this woman named Eve and she's a math teacher and it seems like she's just got the perfect life. She's got this gorgeous, dreamy husband and he also teaches English at the high school where she teaches math. And, everyone tells her how lucky she is when her mentor teacher, a man that she really has a lot of respect for, has lost his job because a troubled teenage girl named Addie has, I guess, been found in his yard, hanging out in his yard. And there's a lot of speculation about, did he do something inappropriate with Addie because, he's been seen driving her places and she's been over his house. And he says, she was just a troubled student and he was really just trying to be kind to her and help her. And I guess she sort of started stalking him and it turned sour and he ended up losing his job. And everyone in the school is really suspicious of Addie. She's kind of like walking around with the scarlet letter because people suspect that she had an affair with this teacher. And for some reason, it's relevant that he's kind of like an older, chubby teacher, looks like Santa Claus, it says in the text. And he's just a very sweet, kindly, elderly man. And so everyone has this really negative opinion of Addie. Meanwhile, there's this English teacher who's Eve's husband. Eve is the main character. The book is mostly told from Eve's point of view. Sometimes it's told from Addie's point of view. And in the end, not the very end, but toward the end, it starts being told mostly from Nate's point of view, the dreamy English teacher guy. And as you know, I'm an English teacher. So I just don't buy into that idea that there's this Mr. Hottie English teacher that all the students, it's okay for them to lust after this English teacher because he's younger, he's 40 something, but he's so attractive and he's so lyrical and he's always talking about Edgar Allan Poe. And so all the girls are just gushing over him all the time. And it's okay, I guess, for the girls to throw themselves at him, but it's not okay for them to be in the car or go out to eat with the teacher that looks like Santa Claus. Now, personally, I am all about boundaries. I would not be going out to eat with my students or anything, and they know that. I love my students, they love me, but not in a cringy way, right? So reading this book, and it is going to have some spoilers, let me tell you that before you get any further, because I am so offended, and you need to really understand why I'm offended by this book. So the man that looks like Santa Claus that has lost his job for just being kind to Addie, and there's speculation about what he and Addie may or may not have done behind closed doors. None of it's true. And he has lost his job. But the dreamy English teacher ends up sleeping with Addie. And she is, I believe, a junior. She's maybe just turned 16. She rides her bicycle to school, so she's a child. And he is having this disgusting relationship with her. And if I had known that going into the book, I mean, I knew it would be about teachers, and I knew there might be a few inappropriate things from maybe a character that's a teacher, but I had no idea I was going to be reading like scene after scene of, you know, love between a 40-some-year-old man and a 16, maybe 15-year-old girl. And it was just disgusting and cringy and offensive. And there was also a lot of angst in it. You know, this high school teacher, this English teacher, Nate, he's very manipulative. And as a grown woman, I'm listening to him because it's an audio, and I'm listening to all the games he plays with Addie. And it's so obvious that he's just manipulating her and using her. And she, of course, just can't live without him. He says, "Oh, you're my soulmate." And she believes that. And she just goes on and on about how they're soulmates. And whatever he says, she's willing to do. And he's just so obviously manipulating her. And I was really offended by that. And then meanwhile, the teacher that's lost his job for, you know, suspicions of things that he never even did. The only time we actually hear from him in the book, he's really drunk in the grocery store. So he's not really the most respectable character either. I mean, the narrator tells the story, Eve, she's telling the story, and she's talking about how this guy was a great guy and he was so wonderful. But the only time we actually hear from him directly in the book, he's just really, really drunk in the grocery store, and Eve ends up having to drive him home. So we've got the pervy pedophilic teacher. We've got the drunken Santa Claus who was wrongly accused but fired anyway, because God forbid, you know, anyone in the book actually listened to his version of the story and offer him or his profession enough respect to actually sit down and listen to him and consider what he has to say. You know, it's like, no, there's suspicion, you got to go. And I understand that. I mean, I do. I completely understand that. But the problem I had with the teacher is the whole book. Every single character in there was disgusting and despicable. I mean, there was not a single character in the book that I could like. So I got through the whole book just hoping for something that I could like. And there was nothing at all. I mean, the book suggests that all teachers are just sleazy, either drunks or pedophiles, or just angry, negative people. And it was just despicable. Now, Addie is bullied. So for much of the beginning of the book, I thought, okay, this is going to be a book about a troubled teenage girl who's bullied by pretty much the whole school. But of course, there's a ringleader, and she's like this little Barbie girl, you know, perfect blonde hair, just very beautiful, very wealthy. And her name is Kenzie. And the things that she did and the things that she got away with, and the lack of empathy or the lack of awareness from the teachers in the book was also despicable. And I just don't believe that. Being a high school teacher, I think that teachers, I am a high school teacher, and I'm in the hall in between class changes. I'm watching what's going on. You know, we do care about kids in this profession. And I was just so angry that this book, I could almost live with the book if it had at least one decent character in the book, but it just left with the understanding that all teachers are horrible, all people are horrible. And I mean, if you did that about any other group, if you wrote a book where everyone in this particular group or this particular profession or whatever was evil or victimizing of other people, or just for whatever reason horrible and not respectable, I think there would be more of an outcry. So it really offended me. I will say the one thing about the book that I did like the plot twists. There were some plot twists in the book that were good. good in that they were surprising, but the one at the end just really made me mad. I mean, I was listening to it, so I got to the very end of the book. I'm talking about like the last few pages in the epilogue, and there's this plot twist thrown at me. And I know it was, there were at least 3 plot twists in there. But the one at the end, I was like, wait a minute, did she just say that? Oh, wow. So I went back and I listened to make sure I understood the final plot twist. And to me, it was just the frosting on the cake. It was like, okay, I'm so furious with Frida McFadden right now. Because, and then after that, Frida McFadden, there's this like author's note where she says her teenage daughter, she asked her to write a yucky poem that a teenager would write, because apparently the cringy, pervy English teacher writes this poem for Addie. And so she asked her teenage daughter to write a bad poem. And I'm thinking, okay, so you have a teenage daughter, and how does she get an education? Is she homeschooled, or are you comfortable sending her to a school that you clearly have no respect for? So it really, I don't know. I would have liked for teachers to be, at least one teacher to be presented as worthy of respect, because, I mean, I know it's just a book and it's a fictional story, but I think we need to have more respect for all people and all professions, but teachers too. One thing I will say also about the book that I liked, I would actually agree with this, is that the book does suggest that there is maybe not a profile, but there are certain characters that are easier to victimize. And I'm not saying that a victim never deserves to be victimized. But Addie is more vulnerable to victimization. She's much more pliable for the abuser, because I don't know, I guess because her father was an alcoholic and there's a plot twist there, but she just had very little self-esteem and, was sort of on the outside anyway. She was alienated by her peers anyway, and so she made an easier target there. And there is research to suggest that people who are alienated, who are not in a group, are easier to target, especially for like bullying. But in this case, for victimization from the pedophile. And I would never ever say that somebody deserves to be victimized. They do not ever deserve it. But I do think, and it can happen to anyone, I'm not saying that either, but I am saying that, we can decrease the odds. And I read this one book. It was a fantastic book. I'll put it up here. It's called Protecting the Gift. And the book was written by a retired FBI agent who tracked down pedophiles and killers and kidnappers. And he wrote this whole book about how to protect your child as a parent. What can you do to protect your child? And one thing he said that I thought was really just on point was, he said, we tell children never talk to strangers, when really what we should be telling them is never talk to people who are strange. And I know that's going to make some people mad, but the truth is, and he says this in his book, he says, I'm outside, sorry about the alarm, I guess it's a fire truck, if you can hear it. But he says in his book, he says, for example, if you're a parent and you have this little child and you're in the mall or a theme park or whatever, and the child gets separated and you've told them over and over, never talk to strangers, and this little helpless child is lost and alone and they've been told not to talk to strangers, they're just an easy target, right? Because they're sitting there and they're not going to go after somebody who can help them. And who do you think is more likely to offer them help, right? Probably a person who does not have the greatest intentions. So it's better to have the child learn to identify things that can help them, identify things in people that can help them. So maybe teach them, look for an employee of the store or of the theme park and see if you can tell them, hey, can you help me find my parent? But anyway, so if you think about that, if you think about teaching your child to take matters into their own hands, even at a young age, so that they can be empowered. That's one strategy to make them a little safer. I always talk to my children about personal space, about eye contact. We would go somewhere, and even when they were really little, I would say, that person was getting in my space bubble. I didn't really like that. Or I might say, that person didn't make eye contact when they were talking to me. That made me uncomfortable. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Just always teaching children to identify behaviors in people and to just be aware of the people around them, to empower them as best we can. And so I give Frida McFadden 2 stars because she at least had some plot twists, and I agree with her that some characters, maybe some people, can be better empowered to prevent victimization. I think that was implied in the character of Addie, but it was just there was so much in the book I really didn't like. I didn't like the way teachers were portrayed, and I didn't like all the angst, all the, oh, we're soulmates, oh, I have to have this guy. It was just on and on and on. And then the love scenes, the cringy love scenes, they were just downright cringy, almost pornographic. I mean, it wasn't very triggering. The book didn't really overly depict anything graphic. But that just, that it's a teenager and a 40-some-year-old man. And couldn't you just sort of imply that happened? We don't need the details. Ew. Okay? Just ew. That's my overall impression of Frida McFadden's book, The Teacher. Ew.